immigration tensions escalate, the former president of FIFA is supporting a boycott of the upcoming 2026 World Cup.
The 2026 FIFA World Cup is still months away, but the governing body is already in damage control mode.
The 2026 World Cup was never supposed to feel fragile. It was announced as history in motion, the largest tournament ever staged, hosted across North America, backed by billions in sponsorships, expanded to 48 teams, and positioned as a symbol of unity in a divided world. Long before a single ball is kicked, it was treated as inevitable, locked in, immovable, untouchable. But history does not protect events from politics, and lately, something beneath the surface has shifted. Not with riots, not with formal boycotts, not with dramatic announcements. Instead, with quiet signals, numbers that move, registrations that disappear, conversations that change tone, confidence thinning without headlines screaming collapse. More than 16,000 ticket registrations were canceled during one draw phase alone. That number is small compared to hundreds of millions of applications. But numbers are rarely about size in moments like this. They are about direction. When cancellations begin before the tournament even starts, it signals something deeper than logistics. It signals doubt. At nearly the same time, a video from Minneapolis spread globally. Immigration enforcement agents fatally shot a U.S. citizen in a city scheduled to host World Cup matches. The footage circulated across Africa, Europe, Asia, and Latin America within hours. It was not directly connected to the tournament, but perception does not care about official connections. The contrast was stark. On one side, FIFA's branding, inclusion, safety, shared humanity, celebration. On the other, images of force, unpredictability, and fear inside a host city. The collision was psychological. For international fans, the World Cup is not just a sporting event. It is often a once-in-a-lifetime journey. Families save for years. Communities plan trips around national pride. The emotional investment runs deep. When uncertainty enters that calculation, it changes everything. And uncertainty did not arrive accidentally. Months earlier, President Donald Trump signed an executive order suspending visa processing for citizens of 75 countries. The move was framed as national security. Domestically, it played to political strength. Internationally, it created friction. The World Cup depends on global mobility. Fans from Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Asia suddenly faced rising barriers. Visa fees increased. Processing times stretched, documentation requirements tightened, no clear guarantees were offered that holding a match ticket ensured entry. Owning a ticket no longer meant access, it meant risk. Flights were booked with hesitation, hotels were reserved cautiously. Social media began filling with stories of delayed applications and rejected travel plans. The excitement that normally builds around a tournament began sharing space with calculation. Then, the enforcement raids began trending online. Surprise checks, families separated, high-profile detentions. The imagery did not align with the promise of a welcoming global celebration. This is where the tension hardened. The World Cup markets itself as borderless emotion. But borders suddenly felt central. January 7th became a turning point. The Minneapolis shooting did not just spark local political outrage, it triggered global conversation. The mayor publicly told ICE to leave the city. The governor described the situation as predictable. International observers viewed it differently. If this could happen in a host city before the tournament, what would conditions look like during it? That question spread quickly. Soon after, a Lebanese diplomat posted a video tearing up his World Cup ticket. It was symbolic, but symbolism matters. It reframed the tournament as something people could morally withdraw from. FIFA could not ignore it. Vice President Victor Montagliani broke from the organization's usual neutral tone and said something unusually direct. Football is bigger than any regime. That sentence carried weight because it acknowledged reality. The World Cup was drifting into political territory, whether FIFA wanted it there or not. And this was not the first clash. Months before, President Trump suggested moving matches out of cities he labeled unsafe. Montagliani responded firmly that the tournament belonged to FIFA, not to national politics, that public defiance was rare. Behind closed doors, contingency conversations began. 16 host cities were contracted, 11 in the United States, 3 in Mexico, 2 in Canada. FIFA technically has authority to reallocate matches if extraordinary conditions arise. The fact that this option even existed unsettled officials in Washington. Meanwhile, FIFA President Gianni Infantino remained publicly quiet. Known for maintaining cordial ties with Trump, he neither defended U.S. policies nor criticized them. The silence was strategic. FIFA did not want open confrontation, but it also did not want control slipping away. Then came a headline meant to calm everything. Over 500 million ticket applications, an all-time record. On the surface, it appeared to bury the boycott narrative. Demand was overwhelming. The World Cup remained magnetic. But demand and confidence are not the same thing. High application numbers do not eliminate risk perception. They only show interest. What mattered more was how people felt about actually traveling. Hotel prices across host cities surged dramatically, some locations seeing increases of over 300% compared to typical rates. Vancouver and Toronto saw major spikes. Mexico experienced rapid growth. U.S. cities showed more modest increases, not necessarily because of low demand, but because hesitation tempered speculative pricing. That hesitation was the real signal. Fans were not avoiding the United States outright. They were weighing risk more heavily than before. Sponsors were watching too. Global brands operate on reputation management. Quietly, portions of marketing budgets began shifting toward Canada and Mexico activations. This was not a protest. It was insurance. Human rights organizations entered the discussion. Amnesty International and Human Rights Watch raised concerns about visa restrictions and enforcement visibility around stadiums. International media outlets began questioning whether domestic immigration policy was undermining the global nature of the tournament. And this is where the controversy deepens. The 2026 World Cup was designed to symbolize North American unity. Instead, it risks exposing fracture lines between national sovereignty and global expectation. Sport does not float above politics. It reflects it. The more enforcement becomes visible, the harder it is to maintain the illusion of neutrality. And once trust begins eroding, it rarely collapses all at once. It thins, gradually, quietly. Cancellations, hesitations, budget shifts, visa anxieties, viral footage. None of these alone cancel a World Cup, but together they create pressure. The tournament may still proceed exactly as planned. Stadiums may fill, television ratings may break records, but perception has already shifted. For the first time, participation feels conditional. Confidence is no longer automatic. And the question now hanging over 2026 is not whether the World Cup will happen. What makes this moment explosive is not the cancellations themselves. It is what they represent. The 2026 World Cup is not just a tournament. It is a geopolitical showcase. The United States is not merely hosting matches. It is hosting the world. And when the world begins questioning whether it feels welcome, that question becomes political, whether anyone wants it to or not. For decades, global sporting events have operated on an unspoken agreement. Host nations handle logistics. Governing bodies handle spectacle. Politics stays backstage. That separation was always fragile, but in 2026, it may be collapsing in plain sight. President Donald Trump's approach to immigration and border enforcement is not subtle. It is central to his political identity. Supporters see strength and sovereignty. Critics see unpredictability and exclusion. But the World Cup audience is not domestic voters. It is global, and global perception rarely aligns neatly with domestic political narratives. The executive order suspending visa processing for citizens of 75 countries did not mention football, yet it landed like a warning shot across the tournament's foundation. Fans from qualifying nations suddenly faced uncertainty that had nothing to do with performance on the pitch. The issue was entry. This is where the pressure intensifies. The World Cup depends on more than players. It depends on movement. It depends on tens of thousands of traveling supporters who generate atmosphere, spending, and cultural exchange. When mobility becomes conditional, the spirit of the event shifts. And that shift is being noticed inside FIFA. Behind the scenes, officials are not only discussing ticket sales, they are modeling reputational scenarios. What happens if African fan turnout drops significantly? What if Middle Eastern supporters face visa bottlenecks? What if protests erupt outside certain venues? None of these require mass boycotts to cause damage. They only require visibility. Sponsors are especially sensitive to visibility. Global brands invest billions into the World Cup because it promises positive association, celebration, unity, joy. If that narrative collides repeatedly with enforcement controversies, sponsors recalibrate, quietly, strategically. Already, marketing allocations are being hedged toward Canadian and Mexican venues, where entry policies are perceived as more predictable. That does not mean the United States is losing the tournament. It means the center of gravity could subtly shift. Canada and Mexico have remained careful in their messaging. Neither government has criticized U.S. policy publicly. Instead, they emphasize stability, transparent visa processes, completed infrastructure, predictability. In moments of uncertainty, predictability becomes a competitive advantage. Meanwhile, Washington insists security measures are necessary and non-negotiable. From a sovereign perspective, that position is defensible. No country surrenders border control to a sports organization. But sovereignty and spectacle now intersect in ways that are impossible to untangle. FIFA understands this tension. That is why Victor Montagliani's statement, "Football is bigger than any regime," mattered. It was subtle defiance wrapped in diplomatic language. It signaled that the tournament cannot be held hostage to political narratives, even if those narratives dominate headlines. The larger question is whether FIFA truly has leverage. Contractually, yes, matches could be reallocated. The tournament is shared across 3 countries. If conditions deteriorated severely, additional fixtures could shift north or south. But doing so would trigger financial and political fallout of its own. The United States accounts for the majority of projected revenue. Broadcasting rights, sponsorship packages, hospitality deals, they are structured around American stadium capacity and commercial scale. Relocating even a fraction of that structure would send shockwaves through corporate agreements. So the more realistic scenario is not relocation, it is adaptation. Security visibility may be reduced near stadium zones. Visa processing for ticket holders could receive expedited lanes. Special diplomatic coordination might soften enforcement optics during match windows. These adjustments would not change national policy. They would create temporary buffers around the tournament itself. But even those adjustments carry risk. If enforcement appears selectively relaxed for World Cup visitors, critics will question fairness. If enforcement remains rigid, critics will question inclusivity. There is no clean solution. The 2026 World Cup was designed as a triumph of scale. 48 teams, record attendance, unmatched revenue, but scale magnifies scrutiny. Every policy decision echoes louder when the world is watching, and the world is watching more closely than ever. Social media ensures that no local incident remains local. A detention at an airport becomes a global trending topic within minutes. A protest outside a stadium is live-streamed worldwide. A visa rejection becomes a symbol. Perception outruns explanation. This is where the tournament becomes a test of narrative control. Can the United States project strength without projecting hostility? Can FIFA maintain neutrality while operating inside political tension? Can sponsors maintain optimism if controversy becomes routine? These are not abstract concerns. They are active calculations happening inside corporate boardrooms and federation offices. The irony is that record ticket applications coexist with rising hesitation. Both are true simultaneously. Interest in football is enormous, but trust in frictionless access is weaker than organizers anticipated, and trust is harder to restore than to measure. If even a small percentage of global fans choose to watch from home rather than travel, the atmosphere shifts. Television ratings may remain strong, but stadium optics matter. Empty patches in certain sections, reduced traveling supporter presence, subdued fan culture. These visuals shape perception long after the final whistle. For Trump, the tournament represents opportunity, a global platform, a demonstration of American capacity, economic stimulus, national pride, but it also presents risk. Any controversy becomes internationalized instantly. For Carney in Canada and leaders in Mexico, the calculus is quieter. Stability without confrontation. Participation without entanglement. Let Washington carry the spotlight and the scrutiny. What began as a sporting event is now a geopolitical balancing act. The 2026 World Cup is not collapsing. It is not imploding, but it is no longer untouchable. Its success is no longer assumed. It is conditional on how well politics and spectacle can coexist for 30 days without overshadowing each other. And that may be the most controversial realization of all. The world's biggest tournament does not fail because of goals scored or matches lost. It fails or succeeds based on whether people feel welcome crossing the border. That feeling cannot be manufactured through marketing campaigns. It must be experienced. The final outcome is still unwritten, but one truth is already clear. The 2026 World Cup is no longer just about football. It is about perception, power, sovereignty, and whether global celebration can survive domestic political intensity. That is the pressure building, and it will only intensify as kickoff approaches.